Hi everyone, welcome back to the channel. I hope you enjoyed your Christmas break. I'm currently working on my second book, which is all about human clones, and have been a little bit preoccupied with that, so apologies for the delay in getting the latest instalment out there. So this week, chapter 11 is titled Prisons. It's from my book Tesla and the Cabbage Patch Kids. So if you're sitting comfortably, we shall begin. Are these places actually where the parasites harness energy? I'm not talking about the buildings themselves, which share the same esoteric features as other Tartarian structures, but the people held inside. If we're all energy, then this is surely possible, isn't it? If the parasitic elite are low vibrational beings, without souls nor the ability to create anything artistic or truly beautiful, then could the original purpose of a prison be to somehow harness the energy of the inmates and the surviving Tartarians? If so, it would serve two purposes. First, it would reduce the inmates to a low vibrational and very subdued state, and second, it would generate some kind of energy. It sounds a bit far-fetched, doesn't it? It certainly requires an open mind, with a great deal of thought, and even as I write this, I'm not certain, but I do know one thing. The inmates are charged and placed inside cells. This, in any scientific discussion, would be a battery. Added to this, the buildings are often constructed with red brick, which, as I've mentioned previously, has the capability of storing energy in a similar way to the chemical reaction that causes rust. The Criminal Law Act was introduced in Britain in, surprise surprise, 1776. It is also the same year that Britain started sending convicts to America and Australia. Between 1778 and 1868, over 160,000 prisoners were sent to Australia alone. The irony here is that during the same period, people were actually paying to emigrate there. So is it possible, as I mentioned in the previous chapter, that they didn't send convicts there at all? Otherwise this makes absolutely no sense whatsoever, as rather than pay the equivalent of several £1,000s in today's money, you could commit a petty crime like theft and get sent there for free. As you weren't imprisoned when you arrived in Australia, you wouldn't have anything to lose and a great deal, albeit financially, to gain. I would also argue that the same applied to the convicts we sent to America. Added to this, prisons as we know them today didn't actually open in America until 1785. 1776 also saw the introduction of prison ships under the new Act of Parliament, and one of the first was HMS Jersey, located just off the shores of Brooklyn in New York. In England they could also be found near major ports like Portsmouth and Plymouth, for example. Perhaps these ships contained people fleeing Great Tartaria to start a new life, but once on board, they never saw dry land again. Before 1776, prisons were known as jails, and only usually housed people that owed a significant debt. Often the inmates were kept inside castles like the Tower of London, but not always that magnificent. The first prison in England was Millbank, and opened in 1816 in London, by the River Thames. It's worthy of a quick internet image search too, as I believe it resembles a star fort. Two of the most notorious prisons in England are Strangeways and Wormwood Scrubs, which opened in 1868 and 1875 respectively, and just like the asylums, were clearly very well constructed by skilled stonemasons and craftsmen. The entrance of Wormwood Scrubs is truly majestic, and with many Tartarian buildings that stored energy, is built using red brick with white detailing, which represents a battery. Once inside, the chapel is incredible, with the most beautiful artwork painted directly onto the granite, depicting the apostles, as well as marble and church pipe organs that are a work of art in themselves. It's an extraordinary length to go to house criminals, would have cost an incredible amount of money and taken a very long time to design and construct. Again, as with all Tartarian buildings, the doors are huge, with no reasonable explanation for this, and the windows are too high up to see out of. It's also worth pointing out that wormwood is the name of a product that is used to kill parasites. Strangeways in Manchester is the same red and white brick, but this prison still appears to have the antennas and framework on the rooftops, and a 234 feet ventilation tower that looks more like an airship docking station than anything else. Across the pond in America, most prisons opened in 1785, just after the Civil War, which was perfect timing if they were to be used to house Tartarian and more rebels. One of the first was the old Provost prison in New York, once again in 1776. New Jersey State Prison opened in 1836, which was yet another magnificent building, apparently designed by English architect John Haviland. It's well worth a look on Google, as the front resembles a Masonic lodge with 4 pillars at the front and a huge tower and mast. What was the mast for? It's far too big to be a flagpole, so I can only assume it was once harnessing energy. They also state that it only took 3 years to build. In Toronto, Canada, the old Don Jail opened its doors in 1864, and this building is simply stunning. In any other country you would expect a royal family to live there, and is a truly magnificent building. However, due to a lack of use over a period of just 3 decades, it is now the Hennick Bridgepoint Hospital Administration Building and has been fully restored. My question is, why did it fall into disrepair then close as a prison, only to be renovated and turned into a fully functioning government building? In Australia, Grafton Jail opened in 1893 and only had 64 cells. Again, red and white bricks were used to construct this, and it closely resembles the entrance to a castle, which also seems like an extraordinary length to go to house a few criminals. One rather uncomfortable prison is Hobart Penitentiary in Tasmania, which opened in 1834 and housed an incredible 75,000 convicts. Who were these people, and why were so many people incarcerated in almost one fell swoop? Yet again, this is another red and white brick building with a huge tower. Wikipedia states that it's not a watchtower, so what was it used for, and why did they build it? My guess is this also housed Old World indigenous. This was used to house Old World indigenous people that refused to follow the New World Order and narrative. France is no exception, with the L'Ancienne prison, which opened in 1853, and once again it's a red and white brick building and was originally used to house sailors and smugglers. It's now considered a must-see when visiting the area of Normandy. With it being so close to a port, could this be where Tartarians fleeing the continent, or fleeing to the continent, were seized and incarcerated? New Zealand opened Dunedin Prison in 1898, and sooner or later every major town and city in the world had at least one of these bizarre facilities. However, the biggest in the British Empire was Spike Island, which opened in 1847, and this was near a port in Cork, Southern Ireland. This particular site requires further investigation, as it's actually a star fort, and as mentioned in chapter 4, star forts were constructed to harness energy from the oceans and use cymatics in their construction, taking a significant amount of time and skill to create. Every single inch of this building and its grounds was carefully calculated to ensure balance and harmony, yet we are expected to believe that this was only to benefit convicted criminals. In closing this chapter, I am still left wondering why there was such a sudden and overwhelming need for them, if it wasn't to detain people of the Tartarian Empire and the Old World. There we go. Thank you so much for joining me. If you haven't got a copy of my book yet and would like a signed one, please get in touch. My email address and details are below. Until next time, goodbye, and thank you for your support. If you have a moment, please comment, please like, please subscribe. It really helps the channel. and keeps me motivated. Thanks everyone, and bye for now.